Okay, so first, this is actually isn't really even a topic. This is really just a callback, but something that I came across the timeline. So speaking of the Joe Budden podcast, everything will really be tying together on this podcast. Um, so recently we were talking about the Fugees. If you, in case you missed it, the Fugees are going through a little beef, which they've been going through for the past umpteenth years. Most recently, they had planned to do a reunion world tour, and something happened. There's a bit of hearsay, he said, she said going on, and some of it's embedded in disc records, to disc records. But sorry, I'm laughing because I remember those bars. Um, and basically, it just kind of it looks unfortunate that a super dope group like the Fugees is going through it. Once upon a no one at one point in time would have thought this super dope uh, hip hop group was gonna be at odds. But at the same time, when we're talking about it, no one ever thought, in a modern day sense, that that the City Girls and the Migos would be going through it. No one thought that Wu Tang would go through it. No one thought, I mean, just like Jay Z said, no one thought the Fat Boys would go through it. It really just seems like all hip hop groups are destined to, at some point in time, dissolve, have issues, and even this even extends to like labels. You see so many labels over time that just break down. But one thing I do sometimes forget is that there actually are a small subgroup of groups that actually are able to stand the test of times, and you don't really hear that much issues. I think the examples that we're thinking about when we first talked about it, I was thinking about RTJ, Run the Jewels, and Flatbush Zombies. But these are kind of newer, quote unquote. I mean, they've been around for the past decade, but but one that I really am almost ashamed that I forget is the Locks. The Locks have been consistent. Salute to Jadakiss. Salute to Styles P. Salute to Shriek. They've just been consistently dope. And it's crazy. I forget about them. And as far as like a group that's been able to stay together. Um, when um when they have arguably one of the best verses of all times. Um, but and this clip came across the timeline and reminds me of that, and they kind of gave some insight on how they're able to do it. So let's listen to it.
One of the things that the guys were talking about is the fact that as a group, if there's ever been any dissension, nobody knows anything about it versus any other group.
A man must have a code or he's just a boy. It's easy for money, whispers, and just life to separate people. But I think when you come in and you say, this is what we're gonna do, this is how we're gonna do it, and no matter any of this shit that happened, we're gonna stick tight because we brothers. We know what it is to slice a pizza in 3 ways. Even more ways than that when the other homies is around. We know what it is to get 2 plates of Chinese food and pass it around the room. So nothing can take that away from you. And nice shit is nice shit, but is that nice shit worth you tampering with your character of who you are or who you said you was gonna be? There's not a watch, car, mansion, jet plane, chain, diamond, or any of that shit that's gonna be more valuable to me than my 2 brothers. That's where the value is, because you can't bring none of that shit with you. But you could bring that character and the memories with you and see them on the other side.
One of
Who's the sauce be? So yeah, I mean, he basically broke it down, and admittedly, some of this does sound like boilerplate. Like, if you do say you're going to be in a group and you do say you're going to stick to it, you're not going to let certain things come between you, especially not money, which is a lot of times the big reason why groups tend to have a bit of contention or differences in ideals regarding money. Ironically, thinking about Joe Budden podcast, you think about like Slaughterhouse and how that went to had some issues, even though they were a super dope. They were a super group. But yeah, again, this is not much of a topic. I guess the only thing that does come across my mind is, I think in hearing this, like I said, it makes a lot of sense why they've been able to, since they do hold to that standard and the ideal that he expressed, it makes sense why they've been able to have that consistency over time. Over time, they've been able to stick through everything, and it just seems kind of inherently like that's what you're supposed to do. So I guess if, one thing I guess he could potentially ask: do y'all think what he's describing is a standard that's kind of hard to adhere to for you? You think it would be hard for most people to adhere to, or do you think that comes easy to somebody like yourself? Or I guess like yeah, what do you? He basically broke it down, but why do you think it's still? Why do you think groups still go the other way when it comes to like these type of matters? If that makes sense. What do you think, Ace?
Mm. That's a great question, actually. I mean, I can only understand. Like he brought up, money and stuff um, not coming between people, like not allowing that to come between him and his people. So I I can't really understand. Well, I, that aspect of it is harder for me, but to understand, um, since I it's hard to imagine a scenario um in which money would be the problem, and I feel like a lot of the times it's it's something it's something else. Like it's not simply like there's an opportunity for monetary gain, and that's what is driving people apart. If I feel like
Not to cut you off. My apologies. And I think I'll instantly agree with you. Like I think say we're doing we getting paid for a job. You probably wouldn't imagine yourself coming in and be like, hey, I'm gonna take more money for whatever reason. But what if you had one of your partners that or associates that did say, hey, for whatever reason, I want to take more of a cut. Do you think you could still hold loyalty to that?
um uh, oh wait, you're saying if so you and another person are going into some type of deal and the other person wants a bigger cut than you.
Yeah, that's I guess that's just like an example of like when money can come between people.
Oh yeah, 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 yeah. No, that is a good example. Um, that is a good example, and yeah, I mean, I guess like if you're considering if you're considering you know people and like knowing people for a long time, there are going to be like it can get to the point where like there's certain things about um character or whatever that may even though you've known this person for a long time, it's things that because you've known them for a long time, the um those negative whatever attributes or qualities can become like amplified in your mind. So if there does arise a situation where it's like a monetary thing can yeah or yeah, monetary situation like you just brought up, or um any type of opportunity comes in for um like maybe jealousy or
Mm-hmm.
envy or anything like that, those negative qualities or whatever that you you like become more evident and that could potentially allow to stick in your mind or fester. Those are the things that um I feel like you could kind of draw on as fuel for um do whatever thing that might result in in the the group dynamic or whatever breaking up. So
Mm-hmm.
um
And how do you avoid it?
that's uh I mean, it's a good question, but it probably comes more down to um the character of the people the than any type of like uh any type of thing somebody can say that you should do um in order to avoid breaking up, or allowing these things to come between you, because just like you said, the stuff that Styles P just mentioned, it's not necessarily like groundbreaking
Hmm.
revel revelations about how people should stay together, or the the things that people should weigh in their mind as more important um than any type of monetary gain or anything like that. But still, even though a multitude of people know this stuff, they still allow it to happen. So I would chalk it up more to like just somebody actually being able to, or having the character that um kind of inherently, a lot, maybe not inherently, but um that allows them to be more intentional about following through with these ideals, even when the opportunities come up for them um to again, like, split like all of the other groups we've seen, and
Dang,
that
wait.
you
So
mentioned.
are you saying some people got it and some people don't?
No, I mean, not necessarily they have it, but they are definitely more intentional about it. Like, they have to be, because if they weren't, like, if someone like a Styles P wasn't, then certainly his, the group that he's a part of would have gone the same way. So there has to be some, if it's not just a character thing, it's just inherent, like, oh, I'm just not going to let that happen. Then it's an intentional thing where he's constantly, like, it's constantly something that he um has in his mind, especially when things could go south,
Okay,
like he
I
was
see what you're
saying.
saying. So so
If
really, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, like he said towards the end, the most important things in his life are the things that he knows he can't take with him to the grave, like the 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 relationships that he's built over the years, and um the memories that he has. Those are the things that are most important to him. So it's like, it's clear that because of because of that mentality, and it's got to be something that he constantly has. That's what has worked for him in terms of not letting that stuff drive a wedge between him and um his people.
Mm, gotcha. So you would say it has a lot to do with being very intentional about what you're gonna let lead you, and what you're gonna let
Yeah.
not come to your destruction, and and just having that like understanding of like what should be significant in your life, not necessarily things that you can't take with you, quote unquote, but some of these more intimate things and feelings and memories.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
That makes a lot of sense. Um, what about yourself, Ghost? What do you think? Do you think do you think these things should, or not should, but I guess first of all, do these things come that like natural to you, so to speak? And why do you why do you think if it can be expressed and laid out like this, why do you think groups still come apart?
Um, I think for me personally, like if I'm imagining myself in a scenario where I was dealing with, like, I'll use y'all for example, in the sense for like extended amount of years working on in a group for music or whatever. I mean, I know y'all and I know myself, and I know that certain aspects of what drives a lot of groups apart, like the money thing or taking credit, or there's certain things that like I know that I wouldn't care. Like there would never be a scenario where oh someone's trying to take 50% and leave the other two people with 25, or I wouldn't do that, and I know y'all wouldn't do that. But for one, it's I think it's not just that easy to just say, "Oh, just don't be selfish," or just don't don't take more, because humans are like kind of just wired to kind of be selfish by nature. And
Yep.
at first, it's easy to go into it and say,
Self preservation.
if we get big, then we're there's never going to be any doubt or question in our minds about like we're always going to split everything equally, and it's always going to be the group first, blah blah blah. But in the moment when it comes to certain things, like one of the members might feel like, oh, they're not getting the respect that they should, or oh, they're putting in more effort, so they should get a little more of a split. There's a lot of little things that could just kind of compound, which is really how I think it goes for the most part.
Or you might have created
And
differences. Somebody might want to start off every single thing we do with make sure you like it, make sure you like the video, and somebody might not.
yeah, yeah, you're right, you're right. Well, I mean,
Sorry.
there's just certain traits and characteristics that different people have, and you have to have the right mesh of those traits in order to have a long lasting relationship in a group. Where again, because like again, I know y'all, and I know that if we were in a situation like this, we would never have some of the problems that arose for like the Fugees, for example. Like I just know that because I know y'all. But I have some other friends that I I don't think I could say that. Like again, I'm cool with them, and I'm not saying that bad people are selfish. But if I was in a scenario with them, I don't know for certain if I could say that I know they wouldn't uh, do something that I didn't uh, find off, or I would do something that didn't tick them off, or it's just it kind of comes down to like the type of person that you are beyond just like the blanket of statement of like you gotta be not you gotta be not selfish, not prideful, and that's
Mm-hmm.
kind of like a given and to make it work. But beyond that, there's just kind of certain personal characteristics that like again we were talking about we always be talking about music and stuff and how there's certain things that I don't like, and there's always got to be someone with a little comment about oh this song that you like is good, but I would have done this. I'm just breaking this down kind of simple in music terms,
Yeah.
but if we were in a musical group, I know we wouldn't break up for like personal reasons, as in like money or stuff like that. But I could see us breaking up because I want to make a certain type of music, and you want to make a certain type of music, and I'm not vibing with it at all. And that just comes down to again kind of like personal preference, and it's not anything that anyone's doing wrong. It's just
Mm-hmm.
how you approach it and how you think about it. And it's just I think you have to have the perfect balance of both the personal side and the business side, and then the creative side, and all those things need to work in tandem.
Which is probably
In
one of
that,
the hardest balances to have.
yeah, because I mean, it's like in for a year, sure, but 20 years down the line, if I want to go in a different direction with the music that we're making, but you want to go in a completely opposite direction, then what? What now?
Yeah.
There's plenty of groups that will break apart because one of the members wants to do some type of experimental electronic music, one of the members wants to do folk, and it's just there's nothing wrong with either choice. It's just it is what it is.
That's a good point. There's actually a good amount of bands that have stuck together though, despite what you're saying. I don't know why
Yeah, that
Slow
is
Dive
definitely
just popped
true,
to the
but
top of my head, but yeah.
Who did you say?
Slow Dive, and they've done like a lot with their music and their sound too.
Yeah, it's rare though. You gotta. I mean, I guess part of it too is that a lot of artists will have side projects to get out their creative expressions.
True,
But
true.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
plenty of
I
bands that aren't making music anymore though that could be just because of different directions. Like still waiting for that new Grizzly Bear album that's never gonna come.
I forgot about that. Damn. But yeah, no, I'm also yeah on board with pretty much everything you're saying, Ghost. Yeah, it really comes down to you really do got to know your people and like the people you're working with, and if you are entering any type of business dealing with them, and we're not saying that any of this is like easy to do per se, but yeah, and sometimes it's not always feasible. Sometimes you might come in contact with a group like in a short amount of time you're making money, so you don't necessarily have time to fully understand the ins and outs of this person, how they view life, how they view money, how they view finances. um so it really does, you do it a lot of these things do take time and putting in effort and seeing how a person maneuvers in certain actions in areas in life. Do they come through for you when you need them the most, stuff like that. But yeah, all in all, there's not too much more on this. Again, it was super um not endearing. It's super just comforting to hear like Styles P kind of break it down, like the standard that he holds and that the Locks hold, and why they've been able to remain together, and especially what he said in the beginning about like having a code. He called it a bro code, obviously, because they're all guys in that group. But I think it's just a code you could apply to people in general, and it's really comes down to about having honor and honoring commitments. And I think that's what a lot of times people don't like. We like lose sight of that. Like, you really have to take commitments and things that you're gonna do ultra seriously. It doesn't matter if it's a sucky day. It doesn't matter if you're sick that day. It doesn't matter if down the line some people are starting to be kind of aggy and not really acquiesce. If you say you're gonna do something, you gotta make sure you do it, and don't be so quick to commit something if you don't know if you're gonna be able to hold to that standard, years down the line. But I digress. Again, salute to Styles P, salute to the Locks. It's super dope that there are some examples, maybe not a bunch of them, but some examples of hip hop groups that I have been able to, stand true to the test of time since the '90s. But if there's nothing else, we can move on to the next topic.